Please use your words. Please use the right words, because words do matter, especially in the kitchen and especially when it comes to cooking. Having the correct cooking vocabulary actually makes your cooking easier, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about in well-chosen words today on the Carefree Cooks Code. I'm Chef Todd Moore, and this is the Carefree Cooks Code, every Tuesday live at noon Eastern. Here's our challenge. How can home cooks cook freely with creativity, confidence, and pride while ignoring recipes and still impressing themselves and others with what they cook? Well, the answer is found in becoming empowered with how cooking works, using dependable and repeatable methods of cooking that work for any ingredient, for any diet, and any desire, just like chefs do. And we'll know we've cracked it when everyone sees cooking as an exciting and rewarding way to improve their relationships, their lifestyles, and their health through better food and cooking. This is the Carefree Cooks Code. Hey, welcome back to the Carefree Cooks Code, everyone. This is the free public weekly show for the methods, the techniques, the insights into better food and cooking. And of course, we're live every Tuesday at noon right here on my Chef Todd Moore page on Facebook. Free class, open to the public. Share it with as many people as you'd like. And if you want to get a private email reminder of when I'm going live, sign up at webcookingclasses.com/live. And if you want to see what I'm cooking, a big plate, and how I did it, you can follow Chef Todd Moore on Instagram as well. This, as I recall, I made this last week. What was that? That was really, really good. Okay, you go there and you can find out what it was, because I don't remember, because I'm a carefree cook. I create my own recipes. I bring friends and family together. I learn every time I cook. I create my own cooking style because I practice pro methods and I love my cooking. Like the sweet and sour pork that I made. Now I remember. Sweet and sour pork, nice fluffy white jasmine rice and Szechuan string beans, because I'm a carefree cook and blah, blah, blah. We already did that. Okay. Look, I'm a real stickler for words. Okay. I'm one of those people who has a thing about syntax, grammar, punctuation, things like that. And I really think it's important to use the right words in the right situation, because words do matter. I mean, especially when you're the executive chef of a large kitchen, or you're trying to run a catering company, or even if you're just trying to coordinate a family dinner in your own home, the words that you use can have a real effect on the food that you serve. We're going to touch on that today, but first, I've got a true or no, this is a what am I for you today. Tell me in the comment section below, what am I? That word is pronounced chiffonade. Chiffonade, what am I? Okay. Hey, friends, another Tuesday that we're back together again. Welcome, carefree cooks all over the world. Or how about this? To the welcome cooks of free world, friends carefree hello. Huh? Well, it's the same words. I just put them in a different order. You didn't understand what I was talking about? No? Because the words were all mixed up? So when you send me a question that says, Chef Todd, I did the thing you showed and my thing didn't turn out like your thing, how can I fix the thing? What's the thing? I can't possibly answer that question. Or Todd, I boiled my roux, like you said, and I sauteed the broth until it was done. Why does my sauce look the way it does? You don't... I can't answer those questions. If you don't communicate clearly with me, you don't boil a roux, you don't saute a broth, and I can't possibly know what your sauce looks like unless you post a photo, and even then. So, look, I know that sounds a little snotty, but I want to make my point. Believe it or not, your best cooking starts with words. Your best cooking starts with the words in the kitchen, and in any profession or in any hobby for that matter, the terminology you use is critical. And there's orientation day in culinary school. Technically, it's the first day of class, but I never call it the first day of class because the brand new students, they don't have their uniforms yet. They come in street clothes. Heavens, people in street clothes in my kitchen. They don't have their knife kits yet. They're not there to cook on the first day, but they're really there to find out about culinary school. So what's it going to be like, right? There's a lot of fear, a lot of trepidation, a lot of uncertain and unconfident looks in the new student's eyes. And to allay some of these fears, to start out with something easy, something that you can learn on the first day and feel proud for moving forward in just one day, I got to give them something that their minds can get wrapped around. I have to give them a win on the first day. They've got to leave on that first day going, wow, I learned a lot. Or they're going to have twice as much trepidation on the second day. So we don't start with food. We don't bother with the spices. We're not cutting stuff up yet. We are starting with the words because we all need to speak the same language in the kitchen. To run a kitchen with a dozen or dozens of chefs like I have, you'd got to have very smooth communication. And the first thing that we do on orientation day in culinary school is to go over all the cool gadgets, the stock pots, the pans, we give them all their proper name to memorize. So if you're planning on going to culinary school, first day is probably learning the names of the pots and pans. And this is important. There is a full sheet pan and there's a half sheet pan. To no one's surprise, it's half the size of the full sheet pan. See? Win for you already. You learned something. There's a full 2-inch deep hotel pan. Fits on a steam table. There is a 2-inch half pan. How many half pans do you think will fit in the opening on a steam table of one full pan? Very good. Two half pans will fill the steam table opening of a full pan. Win number 2 for you. Look how far along you are in culinary school on the first day and the first 10 minutes. There is a 3rd hotel pan. There is a 6th hotel pan. There's an 8th hotel pan. This is important because if you're ever laying out a steam table for service, it's a little bit of a puzzle. Where do the 8ths go? Where do the 6ths go? You can't put 7 6th pans in a steam table. Obvious math, right? And there's a big difference between a 12-inch saute pan and a 12-inch frying pan. We have a chinois to strain liquids. We have a rondeau for braising. And there's even a spider running around the kitchen that removes items from hot liquid or deep fried things. So why do the students need to know each and every name correctly and get tested on it again and again? Because it's going to be part of the communication with the chef. So it might be something like this. When the soup is done, please portion it into 1/8 pans for service. I know where that's going on the line. The guy that made the soup probably don't, but you better know what an 1/8 pan is. If I give a direction like, please saute the broccoli in the rondeau so it's all cooked consistently, and I see you with 4 different saute pans because it didn't fit in one saute pan, we're not communicating correctly, and I'm not going to get the broccoli I wanted. This is where the tradition of Yes Chef comes in. And this is also part of the orientation class. The students are taught to reply to direction from me, from the chef, from any chef, as Yes Chef. And I once overheard 2 students talking, one telling the other that he's going to refuse, man, he's too cool. He's going to refuse to say yes, chef, because he's not going to kiss anybody's ass that way. Kiss ass? You're missing the point entirely. It's about communication. And if he's one of 60 chefs frantically trying to get dinner done for an entire hospital, like I've had to manage, and I ask him to prepare an ingredient, I need to know that he heard me. Yes, chef is an affirmation. Yes, chef is not ass kissing. It's like aye, aye, sir, on a ship, right? No butts kissed in my kitchen. Similarly, I need to be clear in communication when directing other chefs. I can't say, hey, would you cut me some carrots, kind of big, not too big, but kind of small, but not too small, you know? And that's where we have the specific names of the classical vegetable cuts. There's a sketch many, many years ago on Saturday Night Live. I think it was William Shatner was the guest, and he was playing the manager of a nuclear power plant who was retiring. and they were throwing a retirement party. And there's balloons and streamers, happy retirement in the control room of the nuclear plant. And at the very end, with his hand on the doorknob in an absolute monotone with no expression, he turns and says, "Remember, you can't put too much water in the reactor." And he leaves. And the first guy goes, "Okay, let's open up the valves. Let's put some water in that reactor." You heard him. He said you can't put too much water in the reactor. And the next worker goes, No. That's not what he said. He said you can't put too much water in the reactor. And a third said, No. He said you can't put too much water. And as they continue this conversation, the nuclear reactor blows up. Communication needs to be clear, is my point. So when I direct a prep cook and ask for an ingredient, it will always be something like 4 pounds carrot julienne, and the reply will be, "Yes, chef." Okay, that's why it's important when you're running a multi-million-dollar kitchen, like I have on many occasions. But you're not running a food production machine in your home that feeds thousands of people every day. You're feeding your family for a holiday, a birthday, a special occasion, a Friday night, or any night of the week. And if you have aunts, uncles, people that you're inviting, maybe you have an aunt who is an eating machine and will throw your portions way off. But it's just as important that you're aware of the important vocabulary words of cooking in your own home as they would be in the commercial kitchen. So if you want confidence, consistency, pride in your cooking, words do matter. So let's go over a few words that are going to come in handy as you progress on your own culinary journey. Let's start with some of those prep words that I was talking about, specifically those classic knife cuts that we drill into their heads in culinary school. Julienne is a stick that measures 2 inches by 1/8 of an inch, or about 5 centimeters by 3 centimeters. So this is a direction in a commercial kitchen. 1 pound carrots julienne, and they have to be consistent in that regard. Bâtonnet is a little bigger. It's a 2 1/4 by 1/4 inch stick, or 5 centimeters by 6 millimeters. Brunoise is a cube, an 1/8 inch cube, 3 millimeters about. And small dice, if I ever asked for that, is a 1/4 inch, or a 6 millimeter cube. So if you're at home, I'll tell you how this works at home. If you're interpreting grandma's old recipe and she's not using these words, maybe you should go fill them in for the next generation so the instructions are a little more precise in the future than chop the onions. Chopped onions. You see this in recipes all the time. There's a lot more to chopping onions than chopping the onions. It would change the dish if they're huge or tiny. Is the dish better with thin sticks of carrot and celery, or is the dish better with medium-sized cubes? And instead of using the word medium that can't be quantified, how about we get a better definition to your words, right? If someone is helping you prepare your dinner, you can show them what small dice means. And remember, you're not being tested in culinary school. As long as you remember that consistency of cut is consistency of cook, your julienne doesn't need to be exactly 3 millimeters wide. It's okay, I won't tell anyone. But you're striving for consistency of your items. You know there's a difference between julienne, bâtonnet, and brunoise, right? All right, let's move on to more prep words. Par cook and blanch. One of my best tips for your cooking is to par cook or blanch as many items as you can, but most people don't understand the words or the concepts behind this. And it's mostly used with vegetables, but you can par cook a chicken breast, steaks, hamburgers can be par cooked. I mean, this is what your local steakhouse is already doing. I mean, it takes way too long to cook that thick steak that they have photographed on the menu, so they partially cook it. They par cook it earlier in the day, grill mark it, put it on sheet pans, and then they fire it, finish it off in the oven when it's ordered. It's okay. You don't know the difference, other than it didn't take 45 minutes to cook your steak. So if you really want to save some time in cooking, blanching is one of the best ways to do it. Blanching is meant for vegetables, and it means to partially cook them also, but in liquid, and then shock them in ice water to stop the cooking. So you can blanch your string beans before they get mixed with your bechamel sauce or your canned cream of mushroom soup so that they're ready. Then all you need to do is heat up the sauce and stir the beans in. You can blanch potatoes for a much quicker reheating and mashing closer to the meal. You can also blanch fresh fruit like peaches or apples. Get them ready for your pies. This saves time later. Par cooking and blanching should be part of your vocabulary in the kitchen. Trussing and larding are important kitchen skills, maybe a little higher level. Trussing is when you tie up your meat. Stuffed roasts are trussed with butcher's twine. When poultry is trussed, you tie the legs together of stuffed poultry. Or if you are a member of web cooking classes, you've seen my deboning an entire chicken video, and then we fill the cavity with rice and truss it back together so a whole chicken can be sliced. It's really, really cool. Butcher's twine is important in that. The item is trussed, okay? Larding is when you add fat to a roasted item. And when you're roasting your turkey for Thanksgiving at holiday time or something, you'll probably put a few strips of bacon on the top like many grandmas do, right? So, and you can admit it right here and now, you don't know why you did that. You put bacon on the turkey mostly because your mom put bacon on the turkey. But what you're doing is larding your turkey. Cool word to say next time you're doing that. The rendered fat is meant to cover the turkey and aid in browning of the skin. Mostly it just runs to the bottom of the pan, but, grandma did it, so let's continue to do that. All right, let's get to the actual cooking right now, and it might seem like semantics, but baking is reserved for things that are baked in the oven. The term is used for baked goods. Now, okay, I know I'm not helping by defining the word with the word, so let me be a little more specific. Pastries, pies, breads, cookies, doughs that rise, things that leaven when you add heat, sweet things that get sweeter because of the caramelization of sugars, those are the things we bake. Everything else is roasted. You roast your turkey. You roast your casseroles. You roast your root vegetables, carrots, celery on a pan. When you apply heat and the item shrinks and stiffens, if it renders fat, if it loses weight through the evaporation of moisture, it has been roasted. It has not been baked. There's no such thing as a baked ham. I know. Companies that make gazillions of dollars would disagree with me, but the ham is really roasted. But honey, roasted ham, that just doesn't sound as good. But if the item leavens, if the item gets larger, if the item expels air, if the item changes from a semi-liquid batter to a solid, then it is baked. So if you're preparing a big meal, you should do your holiday baking a few days before you do your roasting. Otherwise, your apple pie is going to smell like it was larded. Oh my God, that's so funny. Your apple pie was larded. Now that you know what the word larding means, that's a pretty funny joke, no? A larded apple. I'll try it out at the chef's convention if it comes back next year. This fictional chef's convention. Okay, when we talk about moist cooking methods, we really got to get our words straight because the moist cooking methods are steaming, simmering, and poaching. Boiling is not a cooking method. The temperature is too high. The environment is way too violent. You should not be boiling anything in the kitchen. Don't tell me about your boiled eggs. Don't tell me about your boiled chicken. Both of them should be simmered for better results. But nobody wants to say I had a simmered egg for breakfast. Steaming is an indirect moist heat method applied to food positioned above the steam. Simmering is when you have small bubbles around the outer edge of the pan and a slight convection to the liquid. Simmering is a lower temperature than boiling. And then there's poaching. Poaching is also a moist cooking method with convective heat, but the liquid barely moves, and there are no visible bubbles to the liquid. Poaching is best for delicate items that a violent boil would pull apart or make rubbery. You don't boil your shrimp. You should poach your shrimp. They'll be much better. So knowing the difference between boil, simmer, and poach, as well as the correct steaming procedures, will help you with the blanching that we just talked about, right? So if you're going to cook something in moisture, in liquid, don't say boil all the time. Say the appropriate thing that you're trying to do. You're trying to simmer or poach. And these words are important because the cooking methods are so incredibly different, and this is what can mean great success or just mediocre results in your meals. All right, let's do some baking words now. How about the difference between combine, stir, and whip? This has nothing to do with the amount of air. This has to do with the amount of air you want in your dough or batter and the amount of gluten you want to develop through moisture and mixing. Combine is a very delicate procedure where you're usually combining two preparations into one. So if you've ever made a meringue pie, if you've ever made chocolate mousse, if you've done a souffle, an angel food cake, a chiffon pie, you're combining whipped egg whites that are holding a lot of air with a dry ingredient like flour that could deflate the foam you just created. That's why it's gently combined, so you don't knock the air out of it. Then you've got stir. Things that are stirred are meant to have a consistent mixture of all the ingredients. So stirring and blending are interchangeably used, but maybe not as correctly. So there's no worries about that delicate egg white foam or overmixing when you're stirring. It's just to get consistency to the mixed item. A pancake batter. You just want to mix the egg and the milk with the flour kind of thing. But whipping is an entirely different procedure. Whipping, your goal is to incorporate air. So if Grandma's lemon chiffon pie says whip the egg whites, Grandma wants you to get as much air into that as possible. She doesn't want you to stir the egg whites. She doesn't want you to combine the egg whites. She wants you to whip air into them with the whip attachment. So combine is gentle and protective. Stir, relatively arbitrary. But whip is the one that's most important to baking. In old cookbooks, whipping is called beating also. And speaking of which, if you have an electric mixer, the whip attachment is the only one that is meant to incorporate air into batters. It's not used for combining or stirring. That's where that paddle attachment is for. All right, lastly, while they're not words per se, there's a vocabulary of temperatures that I think I would be irresponsible if I didn't include here, because knowing your finished cooking temperatures means you can always be assured that your food is hot, fully cooked, and safe. And if you're cooking a whole bird, a goose, a turkey, a chicken, some other poultry, you take the temperature at the thickest, deepest part of the bird, inside the stuffing if you stuffed it, but usually between the thigh and the carcass. And again, if the bird is stuffed, you want to definitely take the temperature at the deepest part of the cavity because that stuffing can absorb liquids from the bird that can be just as dangerous as the raw meat. And it's advised to cook raw poultry to 165 Fahrenheit or 74 Celsius, internal finish temperature. I normally let roasts or large things that I roast sit for about 30 minutes. The temperature is going to go up about 10 degrees Fahrenheit or so, and the juices will settle. Anything that's not hazardous, like all those blanched potatoes and vegetables, then you just need to heat them up and everything's ready. And keep in mind, the human mouth is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius. So just about anything is hot enough for that. You don't need to reheat things to 180 degrees. Why spend hours heating up the string bean casserole in the oven when it doesn't need to be boiling hot at the table? See how I used that wrong? Yeah, good. It's taking up oven time. You're overcooking the beans. They're already cooked because you blanched them. You just need to heat up the sauce and stir it together. That takes no time, much less time than filling the casserole dish. The last temperature you need to know is 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius. That's the temperature that you cool food to within 4 hours. That means you should leave things uncovered in your refrigerator until they are cold. You shouldn't stack things on top of each other because that affects the cooling, the air circulation. Let the cold air get all around any leftovers you have and then cover or wrap them for the night, because tomorrow I'm hoping you're going to make it into something else. You don't just let leftovers sit around. Here are a few more random correct words to please start using because some of them make me shudder. Roux, R-O-U-X, roux. Roux is the combination of fat and starch. It's the most used thickening agent. Roux is not the resulting sauce. It's a thickener for the sauce. And this is a pet peeve of mine. This next one, bisque. Bisque. Bisque needs shells. The beauty of a bisque is that you make a compound butter from crustacean shells. Tomatoes have no shells. Mushrooms don't have shells. That's why there's no such thing as tomato bisque or mushroom bisque. Call it cream of tomato if you want, but please stop misusing the word. I'll show you how far I go for this. When I was a chef at the National Security Agency, the executive chef who designs the menus added she crab soup and sent us lower chefs the recipe for the soup. Now, I'm in Maryland at the time, so we're serious about our crabs, and she crab soup is something very specific. It's made with crab roe. It's made with eggs of the crab. And the executive chef's recipe that I got to produce called for the fake crab meat, the surimi sticks that are made with cod or pollock or something like that. She did this to save money. She did this to help her food costs. And go ahead, do that, but you can't call it she crab soup. I refuse to make it. I called it cream of seafood soup, and I got in a lot of trouble for contradicting the exec chef. I was called into the manager's office. We got into a screaming match. We were nose to nose, pointing fingers. I almost lost my job over what the soup was called. Because, if that's how we do things, why don't we just call a hamburger lobster? Words do matter. And I've put my job on the line to protect that. It's just plain false advertising. But let's move on. How about the difference between marinating, macerating, and brining? 3 different words, 3 different procedures. Marinating is adding flavor and tenderizing a protein product. Macerating is infusing flavors into a liquid, and brining is the process of osmosis through heavily salted liquid. So you marinate a steak or chicken breast. You macerate rum with vanilla beans. You brine fish or poultry before smoking. Next is the difference between dredging and breading. Dredging is coating an item like chicken breast in flour, just flour. Breading is the 3-part procedure where the flour sticks to the product, the egg sticks to the flour, the crumb sticks to the egg. You don't just put flour on the item. It's not breaded. Okay, so now, after all of this, your carefully prepared food is making its way to the table. You should introduce it to your diners with words. It makes it sound so much more impressive, and it tells your diners what flavors to expect. Introduce the method that you use to cook the meal. Use the correct words for the ingredients that you used. What flavor should your diners be expecting? How did you finish it off with the seasonings? This past weekend, I had a small dinner party for 2 friends, and I brought the entree to the table with this introduction. May I present? Should have been pushing. There we go. There it is. May I present sautéed local rockfish with a lemon beurre blanc, steamed green beans with garlic and dill, along with local cheddar grits souffle. Now my diners are expecting the flavors of butter, lemon, garlic, and dill instead of going, what is this? What am I eating? So let's start cooking with words that matter, the ones that will give you a little more focus in your preparation, in your cooking, in your baking, in the reheating of meals, and the words that are really going to make you proud. Because part of your culinary journey is learning the vocabulary of cooking and using those words correctly. It brings precision and expression to your meals, and it communicates confidence to your diners that you got it all under control. And that's the way to do it. Any hobby, any profession has a terminology to it, and you will be a better cook if you study the words. All right, let's get back to the true or false today. Chiffonade. Chiffonade is a ribbon cut of a leafy vegetable or herb. So when you take basil leaves and you roll them up into a cigar shape and then you cut across it, you get these long ribbons. So if I say to one of my sous chefs, hey, give me a 1 pound basil chiffonade, I better be getting the ribbons back, you know? Hey, do you know someone who could use a cooking and kitchen vocabulary lesson? It sounds really exciting, doesn't it? So tell them they can focus on the methods of cooking that make the best meals. Please like, love, share this video so they can benefit from the right words too. Would you like to know how I come up with a new idea every night? Would you like to know how I make really delicious meals with a range of flavors and textures and just do it in a short amount of time? It's really so much easier when I have half the meal already cooked. I mean, that's the secret. So I go, I have au gratin potatoes in the freezer. What goes with au gratin potatoes? Oh yeah, I have that savory rice pilaf. It's all ready to go. What should I pair that with? I made a coconut curry cauliflower with Chef Todd in the Carefree Cooks Lab this Saturday. So I'm halfway to a great Indian-inspired meal. That's the key here. When you've already got the side dishes completed in your freezer, just waiting to be reheated, that's when it's about 1,000 times easier to put the rest of the meal together. Chicken breast? Please meet coconut curry cauliflower, and dinner is on. So to me, that's what happens every time I compare things, every time I match, contrast the main item with a side dish that I already have waiting. It saves so much time and anguish in trying to figure out what to come up with when your freezer is filled with sides. And this is the very process that has me so excited to announce our next Carefree Cooking Lab. Learn, act, become. It's the live interactive cooking class on Zoom. It's coming this Saturday, March 5th at noon Eastern. And if you're a Carefree Cooks insider, you got a free golden ticket already. If you're not an insider, you still want to take part in this premium level class, go to webcookingclasses.com/lab to get your ticket now. It's the Carefree Cooks Lab where we actually cook together in real time and wind up filling our freezers with awesome items to reheat later. It's the process that saves time and money, and it makes you proud at the same time. This Saturday, we're going to be doing side dish stock up, making side dishes in individual containers to be then later paired with an entree. So I really hope you can join us, because if you've ever wanted to raise your hand, ask me a question directly, this is how you do it. It's a truly interactive cooking class on Zoom. So until next Tuesday, where we take the next few steps toward breaking the Carefree Cooks Code, this is Chef Todd Moore reminding you that there's a method. Oh yeah, that's the right word. There's a method to your cooking success.